And for me, I'm going to switch to gallery view. And I'm going to turn this around so that you can probably put him this way. So put the guys here. So you can see the guys here.
Bill, are you tying Timbits?
Yes, he is. Yeah, we've got Timbits and donuts sitting here. That's the advantage of being in person.
Yeah, exactly. Get some bonus treats. Okay, so I am going to be tying a fly called the Stealth Bomber. I learned this when I was with the Ottawa Fly Fishers. It's a fly that was used a lot for bass fishing. And
sound off so we can talk.
Yeah.
So that,
and in small sizes, it was great for panfish. And I've never tried it for trout, and I'm not sure whether it'll work, but that's a possibility as well. So I'm going to switch. I actually have a camera set up. We're going to see, hopefully it works reasonably well. And I will, can you guys see that? Okay, it actually looks reasonably good on the laptop. So this is a tiny version. And what it's, one of the main material is this stuff, which I don't know how easy it is to see. It's fairly thin craft foam. It's about a 1/16 of an inch, maybe 2 millimeters thick. They come in numerous colors. Here's a slight sample of a few of the colors. I don't know how easy the colors are to see. I've got here 2 different greens, or chartreuse, red and a white. Black is very common. I've got pink. I've got a couple of tones of blues, and they're you can get it at any craft supply. I think I had bought mine in a pack of like 50 at Michael's, and I have plenty of it left. So if anyone wants some, don't hesitate to ask. Here's another version of the fly, a much bigger version. And this one is in red foam. The tail on it is a bucktail with red and white. And then there's also a little tiny indicator strip, which is not as easy to see. Let me see if I can rotate that around. You see, let me, I'm going to turn this light off, and let's go with.
He's going to use the truck.
Yeah, so this one has an indicator strip on the top. I mean, for a red fly, you really don't need it, but for a black fly on the water, maybe something like this, where it's black and then you see the bright chartreuse strip, that makes it certainly easier to see sometimes. As far as tails go, you can do tails like, let me get my little piece of foam here. You can do like hen hackle feathers that stick out. This one got a little wonky from the box it was in, but that's one option. You can do one like this that has bucktail plus a little bit of flashaboo, pearl flashaboo in this case, that gives it a little bit of sparkle. Here's another black one, and I put a little bit of chartreuse yarn up at the top, again as an indicator, so that you can see it more easily. And then this one has a bit of sparkle flash on it. So you can see a little bit of the sparkle in here with the chartreuse bucktail on that. So certainly plenty of options in terms of what you want to do, and you can get really creative. The main part of the fly, which is the craft foam, is cut into strips that look a little bit like that, or that look a lot like that, because that's what it is. I've got them in different sizes. This one is a black, so you can't see it against my shirt, but there it is. And then I've got this one in chartreuse, which is a big one for a large fly, and I've got one in white as well. So I'm gonna put a hook in. This is a stinger hook. When you look at it, you'll see it's got quite a wide gap on it. It's a straight eye hook, and I've got them in a few different sizes. I believe this one is a size 10. When you start this fly, you get a good thread base onto your shank, and you want to go, I like to do quick, not quick, I like to do tight turns so that they're all touching, and that gives a good base for the craft foam that'll go on top of it. And what it also does, it prevents it from spinning around too easily when you start tying the craft foam. I mean, once you get it in position, it's fine, it's not a big deal. But initially when you're tying it in, it can be a bit of a hassle to keep the craft foam from spinning around when you first tie it. So, and especially if it's on a bare shank, it's definitely going to spin around the shank a little bit. So to avoid that, now in this particular case, I am using a black thread, and you can do it so that the thread matches the body color of the foam. But another option is you could go with a contrasting thread. You could do a red underbelly on a black fly, as an example, and that gives you a contrast. And I don't know whether that would make a difference, but that would be interesting to see how that would work with, since this is a surface floating fly, obviously that's going to be seen from underneath. So it will be interesting to see how that would pan out. Now I'm gonna go with the white body in this case, just because it'll be easier for everyone to see when I'm tying this. And what I do with the end of it that I've got there is I will clip off the edges slightly, and that gives you a better tie-in for the end, especially on some of the bigger bodied ones where you've got quite a wide piece. So as you can see, I haven't made it a point, but I've narrowed it down a little bit. And so now what I'll do is I will bring the fly up to the front. I like to keep it about an eye width back from the end and tie it in. So you hold the long portion flat on top, and you can even bend it over slightly, and that gets it wrapped and locked in position. So that's going to be your first step. And then what I'll do is I'm just going to do a locking wrap here to tie that off. And then I take the thread behind the foam and let it get onto the body of the shank, rather, of the hook. Now, what I do is I bring the thread down so that it is going to be about a third of the way down the shank of the hook. And then I'm going to make my next, no, I'm not too far enough down yet. I should be putting my glasses on for this. That's better. So I am coming down. Actually, you could go even as much as half, depending on how big your piece of craft foam is, the length of it, you could come halfway down and tie it in as your second tie down point. So now I will take that and I will, oh, and now it's spinning. So this is where you having the thread underneath base as a base helps to keep it locked in better. So for this fly, I am going to use bucktail, and I am actually going to use a little bit of orange bucktail. So, and I've got a little bit of black Flashaboo, which I'm just sitting that on top. I don't know if you can, it's actually fairly thin, so it's difficult to see. But I'm going to take a little bit of orange bucktail, and I'm going to cut a small, and I don't like to make it too bushy, so I keep it on the light side. And I'm actually not going to bother using the stacker to try and even it out, but I will fold this forward. And again, once you finish tying the initial tie down points, you can take the thread back underneath to the shank. So here I'm going to take the deer hair and I am going to tie it in, and you want to keep it on top of the shank as much as possible. And I tie it in fairly close wraps all the way down to the tail, to the bend of the hook. And I'm going to take my piece of black Flashaboo, and I'm going to double it over. I will actually double it over the thread and make sure it's reasonably even. Slide it up and tie it in place on top of, either on top or on either side. You can have it so that it splits over on the two sides of the bucktail. And that just adds a tiny bit of flash to it. Okay, so now I've got my tail tied in. I'm just going to come back and tie down the tips of the deer hair, and then go back down to the end of the shank. Okay, now you bring your body back over, and this time you're tying in the body just before the bend of the hook, so that you want to keep the body straight. And that actually does it there. So then what you do is you bring your thread back where you had. So now you're not going to wrap over your body. What you're going to do is you're going to take your thread and you are going to bring it all the way across to the midpoint. What I recommend doing here is just doing a half hitch to lock it in, at least 1/2 hitch. You can even do what you call it, whip finish if you want, but you're not going to cut your thread off. Then you're going to bring it across, and where you had tied it in the mid body is bring your thread across to there. Then you're going to bend your fly over, and at this point, the way you cut these pieces of foam is the length of the skinny portion is going to be approximately 2 times the length of the shank. And what that allows you to do is once you tie it in near the tip and you bring it back, when you fold it forward, that straight portion before it flares out is going to be just behind the eye of the hook. So now you tie it in mid body again and lock it down quite nicely. And again, you can do either a whip finish or a couple of 1/2 hitches to lock it in there. Especially if you have a tendency to break your thread, this is a good idea just so that it doesn't unravel on you. So that now locks it in there. And again, you have to bring the thread. Now, in this case, you can cheat a little bit and take it over the top and bring it to the eye of the, just behind the eye of the hook. And now I've got my thread up behind the eye. And now I can take my foam body again, and right where the body starts widening, I tie it down again. And in this case, so you're tying it more or less over where you started tying the foam body in, is where you are tying this part of it. And then you have this view, which does, which the triangular portion is now fully formed, sort of, and that's what's going to form your wings on this particular fly. So again, I'm going to put a 1/2 hitch in here, or a couple of 1/2 hitches. And that locks it in. And now, again, you want to take your, so again, you're going to take your thread and you're going to bring it across and go to the mid body where you had tied it in, because that's going to be your last tie off point. And now you fold the triangular portion over, and this is where you make your last tie off point, where you will whip finish. So I'm just going to put a 1/2 hitch in first. And then I will get my whip finish tool. Is catching on here. It's not releasing as easily as I'd like it to release. Okay, this is not sliding, so something's gotten caught up in there. I'm going to use my fingers to do my 1/2 hitch. My whip finish. Okay, and that locks it in. And that is the fly called the Stealth Bomber. There are endless variations of how you can do this. As far as I mentioned, like the underbody, you can just use the same thread color. You can actually go with a contrasting thread color. The tail, you can do bucktail with flashaboo. You can do crystal flash. There are so many different materials for tails. You can use your imagination on that. And you can get quite creative. What I've done on a couple of the flies, if you look at this red one, is I've actually clipped the wings at the back so that they're straight as opposed to coming to a point. This one is not clipped, so it's got sort of most of the triangular shape. So again, you get creative and you can do a variety of things. Most of them I have clipped actually. But this is definitely a very simple fly to tie. It's certainly excellent for bass and for surface fishing. Again, I've never tried it for trout, so I think that's going to be something that needs to happen so that we can see whether this will actually work on as a surface fly to catch trout. And that is the fly, gentlemen.
Thank you, Mohamed.
So you're welcome. So if anyone wants craft foam, I literally have a few dozen sheets. So if you're interested in tying this fly,
Really
and you don't want to go and buy a big whack of, I think in the past, I remember seeing them in 10 packs and I think the 50 pack maybe. And then
Some
you
of
can
the
buy
the flies that, what was it? The one that Zach caught, the big
There you are,
rainbow one
another
was
fly.
like 8 inches
Well,
long.
thanks, Mohamed. I'm going to stop the recording here. So
But big
Yep,
fish, like
absolutely.
bigger, little,
Yeah, yeah.
bigger food.
Any questions?